Well, welcome everybody. And just for those that are new to Zoom, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, if you want to scroll over your face, you'll find that there is a little mute and unmute button, and you can unmute yourself. I'm not very good at reading the chat and facilitating a class at the same time. So the best way to get to me is to say, hey, I want to ask a question, and unmute yourself and then ask that question. So welcome everybody to Entities and You, and I just thought it'd be something fun to do at the beginning of the new year. We will be using, we've got a lot of new people that have never, that doesn't mean you guys are all old. It just means we've got new people that have never been exposed to Access before. And so we will be using that fabulous Access clearing statement perhaps during the class, which is good, bad, right, wrong, pop, pop, all night, short, boys and yons. Many of you know that it brings up an energy of everywhere where we've created a limitation or a judgment or have a fixed point of view. And then when we use that, it releases that and lets it go. And it's very fast, it's very easy, and it's fun. It does actually mean a lot, and you can find out more about it at www.theclearingstatement.com. Cool. So I'm just going to tell a little story to start off with, because I love stories. I know in Access Consciousness, one of the 10 Commandments is don't tell the story, buy the story, or listen to the story. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the story because it's very relevant to why I've created this short taster class, and about how entities talk with us, and the language of entities. For me, I always wanted to sort of like, or I had this point of view that if I was going to be able to talk to entities, I'd have to be able to see them, or I'd have to be able to hear them. And with that point of view in place, what actually was occurring for me was that it was stopping me from receiving all of the languages that they speak in. And I use that term languages loosely, quote unquote, because it's like on the planet, there is like so many different languages. I know there's 175 countries on the planet, and almost every country has its own unique languages. And then we have all the dead languages like Latin and all of that sort of stuff. And then we have a lot of made up languages. I used to go out with a girl that actually had made her own language up with her sister. And so only those two people in the entire planet could actually speak that language. I thought it was quite fascinating. And so, and another story I saw when I was a kid, and this was really fascinating for me. There was an autistic man who just spoke basically like this, and nobody could understand him, and they thought that he had a mental disorder. But there was one man that came into the home who was a carer that could actually understand what he was talking about. And so he had his own specific language. And so and this is the same with entities. Like, there's not just, you don't just see them and you don't just hear them. They speak in so many different languages. And the other day, what was really occurring for me was I was starting to get so frustrated and so upset and so depressed. And it was like my whole life. About 3 or 4 months ago, I really made the choice that I was going to choose happiness no matter what. Otherwise, I was going to walk off this planet. It was that sort of intensity of choice. And in that choice, every time that I've started to go down that rabbit hole of unhappiness, I've been able to use the Access tools and the Talk to the Entity tools to pull me back out very quickly and very easily. But in this particular case, it took 5 hours, and I was becoming more and more depressed as the day went on. And I just wanted to cut my throat. And I went on a bike ride, and I was cycling up the hill, and I'm going, I I just can't handle this anymore. I think I'm just going to throw my bike off the hill, and I might jump off after it as well. And then I realized that I had to ask a question. And I had been asking these questions all morning, all afternoon long. But there was this point where I became the intensity of the question. And I asked, so is this an entity? And all of a sudden, I realized that this entity was talking to me in the language of depression. And I went, oh my God. And everything lightened up. And all of a sudden, I was able to talk to this entity because I was able to receive how she talked. And her story was, she was actually, because I was actually in the car at one stage with my friend, and I was starting to get really, really anxious. And I started to curl up like this, like a little child. And in the car, this was before I'd asked, is this an entity? And in the car, I asked myself, well, how old am I being? And that number 4 came up, 4 years old came up. So that was one of the first things that came up before that. And I realized that this child was an entity that had been murdered at age 4, and we had a good conversation. She was very confused. She was very depressed. She was very sad. There had been a lot of anger and rage and violence and abuse in her life. She didn't know what to do. And so she was talking to me from all of these, from this psychological feeling of upsetness. And as soon as we were actually able to converse, everything started to lighten up. And then I was able to ask her a few questions, and she chose to go and get another body. And it was so cool because everything changed just like that. And from that point, I went, okay, cool. I want to talk a little bit more with all my other crazy friends out there that can talk with entities, or all my other crazy friends out there that think that they may be having a psychological disorder or problem, or maybe having a physiological disorder or problem or disease that they think that is a disease or a psychological problem, when it could actually be that an entity or entities are actually trying to talk to you. So everywhere where you have ever misidentified the language of entities as a psychological or a physiological disease or disorder, can you now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Thank you. Good, bear, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, iron, short, boys, and beyonds. So there's basically, if you don't see the entities or literally hear them talking to you, then you could ask this question: is like, okay, so what language are these entities talking to me in? And that might give you some more awareness. But first of all, if you're starting to have a physiological sign or symptom come up, then you don't go to the conclusion that it is actually an entity. Always stay in the question, is this an entity? And you will know, because it will start to get lighter. And if it doesn't change, or if it gets heavy, then it's no, it's not an entity, it's something else. And you have to keep on asking these questions until you get some sort of lightness around it. So the sign, I like to call them symptoms too, because often the language of entities is like, it's actually a symptom that shows up in your body, and that can be a physiological, easy for me to say, a physiological symptom of an entity trying to connect with you. And some of those are very simple things. Like when I was 20 years ago, I used to get hay fever a lot. I thought it was hay fever. I did everything I could possibly do for 2 to 3 years to try and change the hay fever. And I would sneeze for like 3 days in a row, and it would just drain me utterly. I would, after 3 days of sneezing, like really heavy sneezing every 2 to 3 minutes, you can imagine just how much your body would be like, ah. And at that point, in the end, I was very clean with my body. I would only eat biodynamic food. I was a yoga teacher. I was doing neti pots, which is running salt water through your nose. I was doing that with urine. I was doing it, like whatever you could possibly do to change this. And in the end, I had to revert to taking medication, because otherwise I was just literally dying. So, but now when the sneezing comes up, I go, oh, cool. So is an entity trying to connect with me here? And the sneezing stops most of the time. 90% of the time, the sneezing is usually me being aware of an entity trying to connect. So it's like sneezing, excessive sweating was another one that I used to have a lot. A very itchy arms is another one that I get a lot of. When demons often connect with me, especially during sleep, and especially if people have been, projecting them at me, I can wake up with scratches all over my back and weird places where I can't even get to my fingernails. So, what other coughs, colds, common symptoms like flus? Have you ever stopped to ask, is this an entity? Or have you just gone, oh, it must have been because I was standing next to that person on the bus and they were coughing and spluttering all over the place? So anywhere where you have misidentified and misapplied an entity, communication as a physiological symptom, as a sickness, would you now be willing to recant, rescind, revoke, reclaim, renounce, announce, destroy, and uncreate all of that? Thank you. Good, bad, right, wrong, pop, all night. My God, Barbara, you look amazing. Far out. I'm going, who is that person? That looks like a younger Barbara. I don't know what you're doing, but I'll have some of that. Thanks. Sorry?
Hi, Liam. I have a question.
Oh, hi.
Bena. When you say demons being projected at you, what do you mean by that? That's the first time I hear it, and it's interesting.
Well, first of all, a demon is anything that you make greater than yourself. So, and we often bring the energy of demons into our reality to do things that we don't want to do. So like if you really hate somebody and you want to kill them, but you're not actually willing to say, hey, look, you do that again and I'm going to kill you. Then what people do is they bring in an energy, or what we call a demon energy, and then people can project that at you. So if somebody really dislikes me, they may well try to project that demon at me to do the job that they are unwilling to say or do themselves. So it's not a rightness or a wrongness. I mean, if you can invoke a demon, then you can actually communicate with entities. I wouldn't suggest it as a very good thing to do, because once the demon has done its job or gets bored, it tends to come round and bite you in the back, bite you in the butt if you've invoked it. So all of the demons that you've invoked across all the lifetimes, would you now be willing to ask them to return from whence they came, never return to you or your reality or your body ever again? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, all night, short poison music. I can see people like going with that clearly. Like it's not a rightness or a wrongness. Please don't misinterpret that, because a lot of this is not a demon call, by the way. There's a lot of misinformation about demons, but people will tell that perhaps project is not quite the word I should have used, but they will send demons to you, to try and fuck up your reality. It's just part of this insanity of this reality.
And that's an unconscious thing, right? It's not like they're consciously like, I'm sending you a demon.
Who was that?
Madeline.
Madeline. Yeah. Well, Madeline, are you one of these people that like to only see the good in people?
Yes.
Yeah. What you're doing,
and I want to fix them.
You're defending the people that are doing it consciously now. Some people do it consciously. Yeah. So everywhere where you're defending people by saying, oh, you'd only do that unconsciously, would you now be willing to destroy and uncreate all of that?
Yeah.
Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, ice, short, poison, millions. Some people are just mean. Yeah. You've got to be willing to see where people are being mean and using demons, and they know it, and to control to try and control it, or try and control the situation. So everywhere where you're unwilling to be that question, is this person a mean bitch from hell, or maybe a mean demon bitch from hell? Would you now be willing to destroy and uncreate all of that? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, iron, short, boys and beyonds. So
thank you.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome. Thank you for that question. And thank you, Madeline, for your question too. Just like brilliant, because so many of us have been stabbed in the back because we're not willing to see where people are truly functioning from. And it's, if you are willing to perceive where they are functioning from, it means that you can still have them in your reality, but you don't necessarily, you can step to the side when you perceive the knife coming or the demon coming, yeah? Or you can clear the demon. Does that make sense, guys? Just, yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Totally. Liam, just a question. So when you, like, back on the demon being projected at you, like the energy, so I can actually clear the projected demon energy just by facilitating it, go back to from whence you came, never to return to me a bit. So do I address it as, oh, the projected demon energy at me, go back to from whence you came, never to...
Clear the demon.
Sorry.
Go back from whence you came, never return to you, your body, or your reality ever again. Don't make it about the other person. This is about clearing it for you. You're getting it rid. You're making your life easy. Yeah. So I don't want to go too much into demons, but there is an energy there. So I'll just address that a little bit more. What was that? Oh, it's gone now. Okay, cool. If it comes up again, I'll talk to it. So now I've just gone blank. Demons. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So the thing is with demons, if you are truly being you, if you are being the kindness and caring, that is something that repels demons. So the more that you be, the more dominant entity that you are, the less demons have any control over you. Yeah. So this is part of the language or the signs and symptoms of entity communication too, is that when I was, like the other day, when I was in this sort of like depressed mode, it sounds like a rock band, doesn't it? Depressed mode. When I was in that, there were also, it sort of opened me up to a lot of other entities as well, because I was no longer the dominant entity. And you'll notice, I don't know if all of you know the man called Gary Douglas, but he is the founder of Access Consciousness. And like, he has this amazing capacity to be able to channel entities. So he can be running a class, and this actually showed up for me in a class. Every time I looked at him, all I could see was my father's face, my stepfather's face, who had died 2 years previously. And it was getting so intense in the class, I put my hand up and I asked a question. I said, Gary, why is it that every time I look at you, all I can see is my stepfather who passed on a couple of years ago? And immediately Gary said, okay, so is there something he is trying to tell you that you're not willing to receive? And in that question, it was like, I just received everything that my stepfather was trying to tell me, which was basically that he loved me. When he was on death's door, I said, "I love you, Dad," and he didn't respond because he was sort of like, he was not that sort of man, you know. And I was sort of like, "Oh, that's cool, you know, that's cool," but I wasn't really cool with it. And he had hung around for 2 years and talked through Gary Douglas to me. Now, Gary was continued on with the class because he's willing to be the dominant entity. Now, if you have a lot of entities coming into your reality and you're not willing to be the dominant entity, what happens is that it becomes very difficult for you to make decisions and choices. It becomes like you've got a whole army of voices in your head, or that these physiological or psychological, like the psychological symptoms of literally voices in your head, which is what is that? Oh, some sort of mental disorder. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, voices in your head. Like paranoid schizophrenia and all of those sorts of things. And that way, you will become like this, just part of the sea of entities that are around you and in your reality and taking over your body and your life. So the more that you become dominant, the easier it is to deal with the entities, and also and demons won't come to you, because it will be sort of like, oh, this is a dominant entity. Because demons are really not too bright. So everywhere where you've given demons or entities the title of they must be more aware and must be brighter than me, can you now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, ice, short, boys and beyond. If you're one of these people that tends to judge yourself as a pile of poo, that is not you being the dominant entity. That's not you being a dominant energy. That's not you being you. Put your hand up if you're an infinite being. Yeah, most of you will put your hand up for that one. Would an infinite being really be subject to any demon or any other entity on the planet, whether it's in a body or whether it's out of a body? No. So keep asking that question. That's the first tool in access for the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments, or 10 keys to total freedom in access, is, would an infinite being choose this? Yeah. So that's that way we are asking you to look at where you're not being an infinite being and step up to being an infinite being. Being the dominant energy is what I'm calling it. You know, Shannon O'Hara, the amazing founder of Talk to the Entities, and she is a very, very strong woman. I'm sure you would all agree. That is because she is willing to be this dominant energy. Yeah. Now, some
Liam,
stronger than others. Yeah.
What are some tools for strengthening that sense, that awareness of being like the dominant energy? Like, what do you do to?
Would an infinite being truly choose this? Yeah, and then two, it's like you've got to choose it. You've got to be willing to say, okay, I am going to be. What's it going to be? What's it going to take? Well, what if you use that as your New Year's resolution? Yeah, what would it be like to be the infinite being I truly be this year for 2018? Yeah, it's a very open-ended question. It's not based in judgment, and it won't show up any way you think it will show up. Everywhere where you think what an infinite being is, everywhere where you've got a projection of what that would look like, sound like, feel like, taste like, can we now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, ice, short, boys and mutants. Because an infinite being by definition is infinite. And it's ever expanding. You cannot define an infinite being. So everywhere where you've been trying to define who you be rather than just be you, can you now destroy and uncreate all of that? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, pop, all nine short boys, millions. And Madeline, it is a muscle. And really, if you're interested in that, then the Talk to the Entities classes and all of the Access Consciousness classes, that is really the target, is everybody to step into being the infinite being that they truly be. Yeah? Because then that,
Liam, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Can I ask a question? Thank you. I'm wondering, is there a body process or multiple body processes that specifically can assist with?
I couldn't quite get that question. Is there a body class to what?
Is there a body process that can assist in being the dominant entity?
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All the body processes are designed for that specific process. That's the underlying reason why we do these body processes, because when we come to this planet and we take on a body, we not only embody this, our physical body, we embody this entire reality. So every body process that we're doing, including bars, is about unwinding where we've bought that we are not infinite beings with infinite bodies. I mean, right now, if you all just close your eyes for 20 seconds and just you're sitting in front of your computer or on your phone, well, I hope you're not sitting on your phone, and just get a sense of your body, and now expand out one meter out from your body, and now expand out through your whole room, or if you're in your car, through your whole car, and now expand out across your town and your country. Oh, and meet everybody on the call. We've got over 500 people on the call, so meet all of those people. Just open your eyes now, and it's like, could you really find the outside edges of your body and you, or is there actually no separation? Is all of the space that we be connected to all the space across all time, dimensions, and realities? So everything that doesn't allow you to function from that space of being, can we now destroy and uncreate it all? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, nine short boys, millions. And yes, thank you for that question, because it brings us back on track to the physiological ways that entities can talk to us. And if we go into the wrongness that we have some sort of disease or some sort of sickness, then we are not receiving the space, or we're not receiving the entities or the entities' communication. And we can actually start pushing away the very things that we've been asking for to show up in our reality. Because when we ask for let's say we ask for more money to show up in our reality, can I have money now, please? You know, and an entity is trying to connect with you and give you some it's not necessarily cold hard cash. It might be some information, or it might be some sort of process, or it might be because you start to lower your barriers and start to receive more, which is about money, receiving. Then if we come to the conclusion that that sickness is real and true in our body, and we don't question it, then we stop our receiving and we start to destroy our being. And that's why the body processes are so cool, because it starts to strengthen our bodies, and it starts to give us an awareness of where our bodies and our being are not separate, but are part of each other, and we function together, not as separate beings, but as one being with a body. Everything that just brought up or let down, can we now destroy and uncreate it all? good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, iron, short boys, and beyonds. So that's the, and if you haven't done it, you can go on somewhere on my website. There is, or maybe I can put it in the chat or something. There is a really cool article that I wrote called Entities 101, and that gives you a lot more about the physiological side of entities communication. That is stuff that's coming up in your body. It can be all sorts of weird things, diarrhea, all of that. So the big thing though is I never realized up until recently just how they can affect me psychologically. And so I'm starting to become more and more and more aware of that. And so again, that is, so psychologically for me is that I can be insanely excited. Have you seen that? Have you seen that with kids? Like when they're just off the wall. What if that? There's enthusiasm, and then there's off the wall. Yeah, where they're not actually being who they be. They're actually either picking up all the other kids around the place, or they're picking up entities, and they're functioning from entities. And if any of you have not seen the movie Drop Dead Fred, you want to watch that, because that will give you a good indication of how kids can actually pick up entities and go ballistic and do all sorts of weird things. So if you have kids, or if you're functioning with kids, that's a really great one. Or if you function in that way where you just suddenly seem to be totally erratic, maybe you want to ask, is an entity trying to communicate here? Or severe depression, or if there is any, I want to kill you, or I want to commit suicide, I want to die, that's normally demons. So you could ask that, is this a demon or is this an entity? Because you as an infinite being wouldn't really have those thoughts. So everything that just brought up, boil it down. Can we destroy and uncreate it all? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, iron, short boys, and beyonds. Cool. Oh, thank you. So Barbara actually put that in the chat. There it is, liamphillips.com/entities. There. I must have been really clever when I wrote that one, that URL. Okay, cool. So we've reached the end, but I'm totally willing to take a few questions if there are some questions, because it seems to be, yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Does expanding our zone, does that assist in being like the dominant entity and also handling capacities with that entity? Or can you speak about that? I mean, I get that it does. I understand that it does. Just curious.
Yeah. Well, my question was going to be, what do you know? We just did that 20-second quick exercise, which is expanding your zone of awareness. A really good exercise if you want to start to expand your zone of awareness is working with animals that have got a collapsed zone. Or puppies are a good one too, because puppies tend to get very, like they'll follow any of the crazy sort of like energies. So if you're training a puppy, if you start to pull energy up through the planet and up through your body and up through their body and up through your body and out through the top of your head, and ask your zone of awareness to expand and the puppy's zone of awareness to expand, they can start to calm down. Now, of course, you wouldn't want to do that with crazy people or people that are being angry or any of that sort of stuff, because that might actually work. And you certainly wouldn't want to do it if you're riding a horse, because they might actually be calm and be aware. is I do know that if you're on a horse, or if you're on a bike, you can do it with an inanimate object too. Pull the energy up through the earth, up through your bike, and out through the top of your head, and expand your zone of awareness, and just ask for that to expand out. You'll be aware of when that rock comes up, or your horse will be relaxed enough that when there's a snake about or a lot of wind about, it won't go stupid. Because you are the dominant energy, and your zone of awareness is expanded. And with horses, they have like 2 to 3 mile zone of awareness, and then the Mustang of the herd has like 25 mile zone of awareness. So, and some of you have dogs, and you know that your dogs, when you're on your way home, they're sitting at the front door for 5 minutes before you even get home, because their zone of awareness, it reaches right out to where you are. So it's a good thing to practice pulling energy up through the planet, up through you, and out through the top of your head to expand your zone of awareness. That will create more of a sense of who you be, and more of you being the dominant energy, because then you'll be aware of all the energies in your zone. You'll be aware of entities, you'll be aware of demons, you'll be aware of all the crazy people, but you won't be at the effect of it. Before you go into a supermarket, you could expand your zone of awareness. Now, entities, there are specific places where they like to hang out. They like to hang out where there's a lot of judgment, because they can then, that's that electrical component, that because they don't have a body, they can't move a pen from here to here. Yeah, it's very difficult for them to do that. Ones that can do that have a lot of power to be able to do that. But most of them can't, so they have to use that electrical vibration of thoughts and feelings to communicate and connect with you. Like yesterday, I'm not sure if Matt is on, but I was talking to a friend of mine, Matt, and we were talking about entities. I asked him, what can I contribute to you? And he said, I'd like to have more ease with entities. And in our discussion, he said, I'm really aware of a density in my reality, and it was like, wow. He didn't use the word heaviness; he used the word density. So I had a look at that, and it was really interesting. And so we had a discussion about that, and what we found was that entities will sometimes create a density, and that's how he becomes aware of entities. So if you like, what's really fun is if you walk through a forest, and sometimes I do this when I do the Receiving from Nature Spirits classes, especially if we do a live one in a forest, and we'll walk through, and you'll sense the energy suddenly change, and sometimes it becomes denser, and this can be an indication that there's an entity or a denseness of energy that requires something, or that nature is trying to communicate with you. So that's another way that entities can connect with you, through this density. So you want to become aware of how entities are trying to connect with you, and of your capacities with that. And that's why you can, and it's simple, it's not difficult. It's make a demand that you're going to choose it, and then B, whenever anything shows up, like a thought or a feeling or a sickness in the body, something psychological or something physical or a physiological symptom, quote unquote, then ask, is this mine? Is this somebody else's? Is this an entity's? And whichever one is lighter is going to be true for you. And you start to build up that that muscle of awareness, and you start to become the dominant energy, the dominant entity. And then you can deal with the entities. I'm not going to go into that right now, because that's part of this class, is a taster, so that you guys will go, hey, I'm really inspired. I'd like to go to a Talk to the Entities class now. And we do have some coming up. We've got Rachel Salter, who's down in the left-hand corner of my, she's oh, there's Paula there. She might come, who knows. In Nelson, New Zealand next week. We've got 2-day Talk to the Entities class and an intro. We've got Karen Leslie at the top right-hand corner there. She's my host in Canada, and we've got the same thing going on there. We've got another one in Utah afterwards. We've got one in Korea at the end of this month. And there's also other Talk to the Entities facilitators, around 67, I believe now. You know, and if this is an area, for me, this is an area that I've had a great capacity in for many, many years, and I'm a friend of Shannon. We've been friends since I started Access 10, 12 years ago, and she has perceived that in me, and I have been resisting it till this year, really. So it's taken maybe 10 years before I've actually been willing to go, okay, I'll do it. I'll actually receive from entities. Oh my God. And as I've been doing that, my zone of awareness, if you like, or my awareness has exponentialized beyond anything I could ever possibly imagine. And the choices that I have expanded, and the ease in my life, and my ease in my body, and ease in relationship, and ease with money, and all of that sort of stuff has I don't want to say improved. It's just got easier. You know, it's just more fun. I just have more choice. So thank you everybody for coming along. If you'd like any more information, you can always contact me. And if you'd like to unmute yourself now, because me and all my army of entities behind me would love to have a big round of applause. Actually, I'd also like to give you guys a big round of applause for coming on. This has been a huge class. Actually, it's been amazing in its creation. Everybody's contribution and the questions today have just been marvelous, awesome. And also, we tend to forget to say thank you to the entities too, because there are actually some that have our backs and are willing to contribute to us. And what if we thank all of those entities?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.